Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Will to Win podcast show. I am Dr. Will, and I am super excited that you are here with us on this journey. This is a space where we're going to learn, we're going to grow, and we're going to create. What I've decided to do is create this podcast because I wanted to just share with you a different expression of myself. But more importantly, I wanted to share with you some of the most amazing, dynamic people that I have met on my journey called life. And today, for episode number one, we have one of the most special guests I could ever imagine having. When I reached out to him, he doesn't do this very often. In the 15 years that I've known him, he's probably done a podcast maybe 5 times. I know he doesn't do this. And so when I reached out to him and I asked him to be a part of this, I had already prepared myself for the no. I had already prepared myself for the no because he doesn't do this. But when he responded and said he would, my heart was just filled with so much joy, not because he said yes, but because I knew I was getting ready to be able to share him with each of you. I am so honored to have my coach, Steve Hardison, here with us today. Steve, welcome to the Will to Win podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I love your passion and your enthusiasm, your excitement. You're contagious, my friend.
Well, I want to start this off because I was thinking about how I wanted to do this interview and how I wanted to set it up. This is totally unscripted. I didn't give Steve any questions or anything like that. And I was thinking and thinking, I was trying to come up with questions. And then I said, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share our journey and in hopes that you that are listening understand what a moment this is. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited to do this is because this is going to live on longer than Steve and I. This podcast, this episode will be able to, my great grandchildren will be able to watch this podcast and glean from the wisdom of this amazing man. So let me set it up like this. 15 years ago, I was at a conference here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I ran into a lady by the name of Nadine. And Nadine and I started to talk, and I asked her how she enjoyed the conference, and she asked me how I enjoyed the conference. And we were getting ready to separate. And she said, but you know what was the one thing I really enjoyed about this conference? And I said, no, what was it? She said, yesterday I met this gentleman that literally blew my mind away. And I stopped her and I said, oh my God, that is the craziest thing because yesterday I met a gentleman that I've been trying to run into again today and I haven't been able to see him. And literally within a minute, Nadine and I both looked up and here this man was, Steve Hardison, coming up to give Nadine a book that he had promised her the day before that he was going to bring to her. And I left that event and I went home that night. I didn't know who Steve was, had never heard of him before. But have you ever had in your spirit an unction of just, I just need to know this person. I need to know more about this person. So I went to Facebook and I found him, reached out to him on Facebook, inboxed him, slid in his DMs, and I said, I don't know what I need to do, but I would love to take you out to lunch. He replied back to me and he says, Will, I know there is a book out right now that's very popular called Don't Eat Alone or Never Eat Alone. And Steve said, Will, I don't do lunches. And I have to be honest with you, I was devastated at this time. I was devastated. I'm like, how am I going to find out more about this man? A month later, Steve reaches out to me and he says, I have a opening in my coaching schedule. If you can be here at my house at this time, I'll meet with you. Now, I don't know what I had going on, but whatever I had going on that day, February the 25th, it was getting ready to get dropped. So, February 25th, I get to go into Steve Hardison's home and begin a coaching session that would literally transform my life. And I know people say this all the time. They say you go over to Africa, you go over to India, you go to, these third world places and your life has changed. Or people say that you meet somebody and your life has changed. But literally, um, February 25th, 2015, 10 years ago, my life was transformed by Steve Hardison. And I wanted the opportunity for each of you to have the opportunity to glean from his wisdom. And so we're going to start this conversation. Steve, I want to start this conversation talking about creation. And when I talk about creation, I'm talking about our ability as human beings to create a life that we want. And for our audience, for them to understand how serious I take our relationship, I have some documents here. This document here is every interaction that you and I have ever had.
Wow.
Every text, every DM, April 27th, 2014 at Icon, April 27th, 2014, offered to take Steve to lunch. Steve declined and offered a phone call. April 30th, Steve suggests I watch this video. May 18th, 2014, Steve sent me video about commitment. February 23rd, 2015, Steve sends me invite for coaching. I accept. February 25th, I met with Steve. It was magical. Here's my here's my journal from 2015 after our interaction. And this is where I want to start with creation because I asked you a question on that day. And I asked you, how do you become an awesome father? How do you become an awesome father? At that time, I had a 1 year old son, and I had a 15, no, 10 years ago, 12-year old daughter. And I asked you this question, how do you become an awesome father? And you told me you create love. You create love. And so that's where I want to start our conversation. When you think about creating and when you think about being able to create the life that you want, what does that mean to you, Steve?
Well, wow. See, I think fundamentally that creation is something that happens through how we speak. We can have language that we speak and it's descriptive or it generates generative relation. I use my language to speak, so I use it to create. Today we had a conversation with about 40 people. 20 of them will be speaking, and many of them will be speaking with you, Will. You're on the final close-up day. And I challenged them all at the end. I said, now you're speaking at this event. I'm inviting you now in the next 2 weeks to be the greatest you've been, not in preparation to speak on a stage, but for the next person that calls you on the phone or the next text you have. And it was amazing to see these 40 people like actually be able to respond and see that. And I've got communications back from them. So I created a challenge in my language by asking someone to do something. So I'm speaking, I'm creating something. I'm not describing something. Hey, we have an event on that date. Look forward to seeing you. I'm creating. You spoke about love, and if I had a second, I use love as an example. I would talk about love as an example of creation, but it's true with anything that we create, whether it's a business, a relationship with a person, a relationship with whatever our understanding of God is. It's a creation, and we are amazing creators. And somebody say, I'm not creating. There's no one that's not creating. They create when they think, when they speak, when they respond. Everything I think and speak becomes part of the created world I live in. Some people wake up in the morning and their created world is, this is same old, same old. Somebody says, how are you doing? I say, like, it's okay, but look at what's going on around here. And they're creating a mess. So I say that creation, I call this the creation hole. What I speak, what I say, and I'm not talking BSing, I'm talking powerfully creating something I'm going to be. I am going to be kind and loving as a way of being. My purpose in life is to see how many people I can love, learn from, and serve in a lifetime. That's a created statement. And I live into that statement. And people are living into created statements every day. Wow, she was great when I first married, but I didn't know she was going to get fat. Or, wow, that was interesting marrying him. Who knew he was going to fart and pick his teeth? So now I got a husband that farts and picks his teeth, and I got a fat wife. Instead of, man, I love the way he is with me. I love how he does this. And I'm looking for the great things. I'm creating something. I'm not describing it as it is. I'm creating it. So that's a little scratch, but the distinction of creation is something. I've got one client I've worked with 30 years, and we're still talking about creation. And I mean that literally. So there's a little scratch on it. If you want me to go on something specific, I'd love to talk about creating love, because I think it's the thing that is most plentiful that we think is like lacking somehow.
Steve, as I listen to you, and I don't want this to be lost on the audience, because we talk about creation, we talk about love, we talk about the power of words. And I know a lot of people that's listening to us, they're going to say, here's some more of this hogwash. Here's some more of this, what is the law of attraction type of stuff. But I know in my life, and over the last 15 years, I've seen you live this out. I've seen you live this out. When I met you, you had no website, you had no business cards, but you have a line of clients waiting to coach with you. And for those of you that are listening to us, Steve is known as the ultimate coach. And this is not a marketing ploy. This is not create your avatar and who you want to be. He literally is the ultimate coach. And when it comes to being the ultimate coach, it's not so much about his greatness, it's about the greatness that he pulls out of each and every one of his clients that he works with. And I'm a witness of this. I've seen this over and over. And when you talk about creation, when you talk about your clients, I want to bring up one, because people will know this in my space that I work with. The conference that we met at was Infusionsoft, that is now Keep. And their CEO came to work with you 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Company
2009.
company was struggling. Company didn't know where. I remember we used to call Infusionsoft Confusionsoft, right? Because how complex and how complicated the software was. And for those of you that know Keep and know Infusionsoft and know where that company has gone to now, Steve was very instrumental in that. So can you share a little bit about maybe some of the conversations that went on to create Infusionsoft and Keep?
Yes, I can remember having a conversation, and the person sitting in front of me said, and I'll just call them units, said, we can only sell 800 units a month. And he would tell me that, and then he'd tell me that the next week, and he'd say, my C-level executives know that. And I say, you keep wanting to convince me that this is what you can do. And I want you to know every time you say that, you speak it and your people believe it. So you all are speaking. This is a limitation. You've done this for a long time. I said, and this isn't pie in the sky. This is actually we create. We create when we speak, especially if we follow it up with a passion to create when we speak. I said, when you come in here from now on, I don't want you to have anything other than 4 digits in mind. Begin to speak. We can reach 1,000. And this isn't like Harry Ferry or even a goal. It's a creation. And the language began shifting. Who would we need to be to go beyond 800? What would we need to do? How? And people start looking at it. And soon we eclipse that, whether it's in a targeted goal or in a state of being or in an attribute. It begins in me speaking about it. And when I say speaking, I don't just mean my lips. I mean my mouth. I'm speaking when I talk to myself or when I think about Will. I say thus and thus and thus in my head. In Will, I'm creating Will, who he is for me. Or when I write, that's creating. And if we saw what we do in creating, things are getting worse here. We're never going to get this done. I don't have a team that can do this. Great. That's what you're going to get. What if I were able to say, I can see some areas the team needs some improvement on. I'm going to bring that in and we're going to exercise that and have it be great. Creation is speaking this, and this. And we're sometimes sloppy in that, especially in a relationship with another person. We get familial and we stop telling our wife they're beautiful. Or we get in a company and we stop telling people, great job. So now a specific example with the CEO at one time, he sits down with me and he said, I am just concerned that the board is going to fire me. I said, okay, so you're going into this meeting with the board's going to fire me. And I said, so I'd like you to watch a movie. And he says, I'm going to get fired by the board. You want me to watch a movie? I said, yeah, I need you to get an idea. And he says, what's that? And I said, you want to get a movie called First Night and watch it. Got Richard Gere in it. And this is a short version. And I'm saying this to him. Richard Gere is going around village to village and he's sword fighting. And you can see that people are taking wagers on him and he's winning all the money. Then you see a guy in another one of the communities where he's doing a sword fight. And the guy comes up to Richard Gere and says, I want you to teach me to fight like you fight. And Richard Gere says, I cannot teach you to fight like I fight. Now I'm sharing this with Clay Mask. And the guy says, why can't you teach me to fight like you fight? He said, because you're afraid to die. I can't teach you to fight. You're afraid to die. I said, Clay, you can't go into a meeting. They're going to fire me. You got to get something in your mind so you would think they would be unwise to fire you. You'd be able to come from a place to be able to speak in a way that'd be the last thing they do. You've already defeated yourself. I've done something so wrong, they want to get rid of me. Power of creation. Not PMA, not BSing, actually standing for who you are. I've seen that time and time again with anybody I work with. And it isn't like some special talent. It's everyone's creating. Today, somebody will be up 24 hours, sleep 8 of it, do whatever they want, they will be creating the entire time. Every time they talk, every time they pick up the phone, every time they text, every time someone comes to the door. I see all of that as practice to create something great in the person I'm speaking with, create something great in the relationship, move something forward, serve. I'm already there. It takes no extra time. It's just consciously creating because we are literally ultimate creators. Every single person. I don't care who they are, where they live, how much money they make, what their language is, what their color is, what their sexual preference. We are all creating. And when we can see we're creating, we have something we can do about the creation. We become conscious creators. Other than that, I don't have anything to say about creation right now.
I'm listening to you and I hope that you're listening and you're taking notes, because the first thing Steve talked about was your words. Your words. There's a scripture in the Bible that says faith comes by hearing. Faith comes by hearing. And so whatever you want to see, you have to first start to say it. because our words are creative power. And for those of you who know, as we're talking about Infusionsoft, right after that, he goes in thinking he's going to get fired by the board. A little time after that, an investment company comes in and invests 25, I think it was 25 million the first time around or something like that, that gives the company the needed capital for them to grow and expand and get better. And I've seen you do this so many times. And so I want us to help those that are listening to us. Somebody's listening to us and they say, I hear you, but I don't believe that's me. You're saying all of us have creative power. We all can speak. And so if someone was in your office right now with you, Steve, and you felt this limitation in them, you felt this fear in them, what would you tell them?
Well, let's just say they said exactly what you just said. I don't believe I have the capability to do that. That is a creation. And they're right. They don't. And I'd say, case in point, you're creating, you don't have the ability to do this. Now, give me another person who comes in and one has an open mind and work with it. I could have real, these are real stories, real people, where another person comes in, we're having a conversation. So first of all, in that hypothetical you gave me, I would have someone see, I would take their day apart and have them see what they created. They created getting to my office. I would talk to them about a conversation they had with their wife. I'd say, you created that. Look at how we create. You cannot not create. It's, are you consciously creating? So I've had someone come in and I'm talking to them. I said, so what do you really want to accomplish in London? And they say, well, I'm not sure I can because it's really quite racist there. He's Indian. It's really quite racist there. And I can't get anything done. Well, he's creating, that could be true, but he's creating it being bigger than it needs to be. Because if I'm going into a place and I'm thinking that's the way it is, I'm going to have a much tougher time than I can say, hey, even with whatever's going on over there, that's not going to get in my way. And so then he says to me, not only that, I'm just kind of a skinny, ugly Indian. He says that to me. You know what that is, Will? That's a creation. His introduction to me is telling me he's a skinny, ugly Indian there's racism against him. I said, let's maybe change that. And then in talking to him and having been able to see it, I've spoken with him multiple times on events we do where we donate all the money. And he comes out on the stage and he says, I make being Indian sexy. And he's not chatting. He's not doing some kind of deal. That's who he is now. He went from kind of a pudgy little guy to a guy who's, when people work out at the gym with him, they say, you are the strongest guy in the gym. And they mean it by how much he weighs, by what he can lift. The big Hulksters, he's stronger than them. He changed his creation of himself. He would create in the morning, I'm an ugly Indian living in a place where people are racist against me. That is starting me in a hole. That's what I would do with someone who thinks they can't, because that's all anyone's doing. And everything that you are, I am, is the sum total of the thoughts and ideas and speaking we've had about ourselves. The only thing that makes us different between any presidential candidate, any elected official, any leader of a business, anybody in our congregations at our churches, is what we think about and what we speak about over and over again. Not some pop psychology. It's not rocket science, it's farming. What I speak about, what I think about, that's what will occur with time, including that won't work for me.
I so want to use this episode to break down every limiting idea, barrier that anybody could possibly have listening to us. And so I know your backstory, and I don't want anybody to have an excuse not to listen to you. And so, could you share a little bit about your genesis? Because I don't want anybody to walk away and saying, well, you know what? It's Steve Hardison. He's a white guy. He's in America. Life was handed to him, and now he's trying to sell us this kumbaya. So could you share a little bit about your genesis? Because I want people to understand that you didn't wake up with this mindset, that
Yes.
you literally have created the individual you are by what you believe in.
Yes. Could I say something that might be useful, and it could sound to somebody like I'm wanting to sell something? I have nothing to sell. I have nothing I need to get. I don't need money from somebody. I would really invite people who genuinely want to have an answer to that question is to get a book called The Ultimate Coach. And the book has been written about the reader, not about me. It's about the reader. If someone will get that book and read the questions on the back cover of it and the questions on the front 2 pages, and then read the book about themselves, they'll see these things I'm speaking about. And the people that do that have a breakthrough in who they can be in creation. We've probably done 6 events. People buy the book, they read the book. We give 100% of the money to reduce sex trafficking and different things. So when I say go get this book, I'm not getting money for the book. We're donating all the money. But that book, not my speaking it, other people, this alters their life on understanding their state of being and creating. So that's one thing, you could do that. Now, for me, short term of it, my mother raised 5 kids alone. We were raised on church and state welfare. My dad attempted to kill my mother. He's an alcoholic. My mom raised 5 kids. I was 4 years old. She had 7 children. 2 died at birth, twins on the toilet. She tried to raise us by herself, which she did. She never remarried while I was in the home. And she taught me how to work hard. We had every kind of challenge that someone could have. People were not allowed to play with me. My mom was divorced. I lived below the tracks. I didn't have the worst life in the world, but I certainly had one that didn't look very hopeful. And what occurred with me in my time is I started realizing that this thing that I live in, if I could understand what I talk about, I could actually stop talking about the mess I'm in. And that came to me at 8. It came to me like, why do I keep talking about being poor? Why do I keep talking about I can't do things? And over a period of time, I just started coming up with ideas. And that book is, I've not had anyone who's genuinely read that book that their life isn't transformed about who they can be as a creator. In fact, there are people, there'll be a gal that's speaking here in Phoenix in 2 weeks. She's read the book 36 times. She's so moved by the book that she paid 40,000 US dollars and published it herself. She translated it all. 10 people have done that. We're not paying anybody to do that with the book. It's really powerful. So the greatest thing I could do, I didn't plan on talking about that book when I to come on this program, but that would be a great thing for someone to do for themselves. And the foreword is written by Jan Levan Sant, who's a client. And she talks about her experience of being and what she's learned. And the book is really, really experiential for the reader. Most people that read the book will read the back and the front 2 pages every time they start the book again, a new day. So that's the best thing. And then my world's just one of creation. I'm walking with a former client on Tuesdays, and he's a psychiatrist that speaks all over the world. And he says, I'm so glad you let me come walk with you. I say, tell me why. And he's got all these ideas of all this stuff I have. And I say to him, Bill, if you actually knew how much I don't know about anything, you wouldn't get in your car and drive 40 minutes to walk with me 20 minutes and then drive back 40 minutes. And that's not some humility or false humility. It's like, what I know is to create. I don't even need to have specific knowledge in things. I'm going to say, don't get knowledge. But we even use that, I need a PhD to get this done, only because you say so. Would it be better to have a PhD than not one? Absolutely. Do I need it? No, only if I say that. So creation is a daily process, and all I'm practicing all day long is creating, including right now. I'm creating the possibility for any listener there to actually find themselves through creation. I don't need anything. I don't want anything. So, one last thing, I think. Stephen McGee, who'll be speaking with you One day he said to me, tell me who your greatest teacher has been. I said, that's easy. It's my dad. And he said, how could that be? Your dad left your family. I said, yeah, my dad taught me not to gamble. He taught me not to drink. He taught me not to smoke. He taught me not to rape maids. He taught me not to write bad checks. He's my greatest teacher. All the things I've learned are from what not to do. So, our environment shape us, but we can use our environment to shape us in a great way. So that's what I've done. And I make a bunch of mistakes. I'm not perfect. I don't want to be. I'm under construction. But I do know this, that the fundamental state of creation is who we're being. And who I'm being is something to make an impact that's useful in every conversation I'm in. And I'm conscious about that. And it's not like a burden. I'm already in the damn conversation. Why not have it be great? I'm already there.
You bring up this book. Once again, I talked to you before about writing a book, and you told me, you said, Will, the moment I write it, I stop being it. And so, Amy, your beautiful wife, and Alan D. Thompson took on the task of compiling stories from your clients. I have the privilege to share my experience with you in this book. As you said, Ayana Van Zant wrote the foreword. And, I know that many times we come on podcasts and things like that to promote things. And this is not, we didn't talk about this, but I wanted you that are listening to experience, because here's the thing. It's impossible for Steve to coach everybody. It's just not enough time in the world. And so that's why I'm so thankful that he agreed to come on this podcast. But I'm also so thankful that he agreed to allow Alan and Amy to create this book that's going to live on thousands upon thousands of years after we're all gone. But if you haven't read this book, if you are not familiar with this book, I highly suggest that you go and get it. Once again, transformational. Um, we had the opportunity to go over to Mumbai and share um, the ideas and the insights and the wisdom that's in this book. And so when I say this book is for everybody, this book is for everybody. It's been shared over in the UK. It's been shared literally all around the world. When I say it's been shared, I'm talking about physically. Steve has went to these places to share the information and to share the being experience with people from different cultures, from different backgrounds. As he just talked about our dear friend who first showed up as the ugly Indian, who is now being a powerful voice in the world. And
You know what
when we
he's called
talk
now,
about,
Will? Do you know what
yeah,
people call him? They call him the modern Gandhi.
the modern Gandhi.
They call him MG, modern Gandhi. That's how much he changed who he's being and his ideas. It's brilliant to watch him.
And I want you guys, because in the time that we have on this podcast, as we're coming to an end, we can't share all the stories, but a lot of them are in here. But when I talk about just amazing, like like I'm thinking in my mind, and I'm thinking about Jonathan Kaiser. I'm thinking about Jody just push sin, and I'm thinking about all these stories of creation that would take us days to just unpack and talk about the different stories of creation. I remember going to lunch with John, and John and I just talking about the impact that you've had on our lives, and just being a part of. Unfortunately, this is going to air after the Arizona event, but I know you guys are going to be following him on social. Anytime you hear anything about the ultimate event or the ultimate experience coming anywhere near you, please attend. Um, what's going to happen in Arizona in 2 weeks is going to be amazing and phenomenal. And listening to some of the recording earlier today, everybody that's going to be a part of that event is working to be. I've never been a part of an event where before the event, speakers come together to make sure that everybody has what they need and everybody's in alignment and everybody is coming from a place of service and from a place of creation. I know it's going to be phenomenal. I can't wait. January um 23rd,
Yes,
20.
Will. And Will, and also every one of those speakers are paying to get in. They're
Yeah,
paying for their hotel room. They're paying for their food. They're
that's
paying for
absolutely
the
right.
ticket. And that's it, then it's being contributed. The ultimate creation for your listeners is self-creation. The ultimate thing to create is who you're being. I promise you, if you take some time to look at that, that solves a lot of problems in the world. I take care of me and it really shifts my world.
Steve, my prayer is that when people listen to this podcast, that they listen to it at least 100 times until the power of being and the power of creation is so embedded in them. And I know your heart. And I know, as I just said, that you can't coach everybody. I know you wish you could coach everybody, but I hope that you allowing yourself to be on these podcasts. Um, and I hope that every podcast that you're on, that we're able to amplify your voice and that we're able to spread um, your message. There's no one I've met that is more genuine in their messaging. It's not a marketing ploy, it's your life. And um, coming from a kid from Compton that was skeptical of people, and when I said this, he can't be this genuine. And for 15 years, and as we close, I'll share this with you. I don't know even if I shared it with you when we first met, but I met you at a time where I was at one of the probably the lowest points of um, my life. I had just ended um, a relationship with a mentor that was very instrumental and close to me. And um, when we met, that relationship had just severed, and it was a very ugly breakup. And when I sat in your living room, um, I told myself, I said, I'm not gonna sit and cry in front of this man. This man doesn't know me, and I'm not. And you're telling me these stories. And before we were in your living room, and you talked about going to your office, and you talked about how sacred it was, and if I was ready to go into your office, and we started exactly what you just finished with, talking about your father and the lessons that you had learned from your father. And I just remember um, telling you where I wanted to go in life and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to create. And you gave me that confidence. You gave me the words, and I sit here today a better human being because of you. And I don't say that lightly, and I'm saying it publicly because I want people to believe in humanity. I want people to believe in the good of humanity. I want people to know that there are good people in this world. And you can attract those people by just changing your words. I remember before I met you praying, and it's in my journal, God, send me my next mentor, send me my next person that's going to guide me. And unbeknownst to me, that I would meet you a couple of weeks later. And so, thank you so much for being my very first guest. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And just, I want to open it up for you just to share parting words. What would be your last words to the audience?
I wish that anyone who is listening, I could sit face to face with them and look at them and let them know that I appreciate them and that they're divine and they have as much power as any other person has to create. That's what I'd want them to know.
I love you to life, buddy. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Dr.
you.
Will. Thanks for having me.